So welcome to this webinar, How to Reduce Nerves and Speak with Increased Confidence. Most of you will know that fear of public speaking is mankind's #1 fear. Dying #2, snakes and spiders 3 and 4. And of course the comedian Seinfeld on one of his TV shows made the remark that did you know that people would rather be in the coffin at a funeral than delivering the eulogy? And when you think of that, clearly you'd rather not be in the coffin, you would rather be delivering the eulogy, but that just indicates the level of fear that people fear that people experience around speaking. So today I'm going to go through two processes. I'm going to put some fear into perspective with you and get a bit of an understanding of the role that fear plays in public speaking. The second thing, I'm going to give you some tips and skills that if you put these in place prior to speaking, prior to presenting, you'll be more confident and more effective and less likely to stumble or have problems with your presentations. Okay, most of you know me, most of you have heard me speak before. I'm a public speaking trainer and coach, and I love helping people become more confident and effective in their public speaking. It's important that you get your message across and you contribute in the way that you want to, and people don't always have that opportunity. I recently heard of a case of an accident, an health and safety accident, where a person observed something that they knew was unsafe, but they just didn't have the courage to speak up because they felt they might be judged, they might be ridiculed, they might be looked down upon because their fear of public speaking. So they said nothing, and sure enough, the equipment broke and someone was injured. So having the confidence to be able to speak confidently and effectively to get your message across is important, because sometimes you need to say things, whether it's job interviews or it is in a safety situation that I've just described. And that's what I like helping people to do. Two aspects, the confidence and the being more effective. Today is more about the confidence and overcoming some fear. What we'll cover, and I've briefly introduced myself, and you know that I'm a person who stutters, so my background's not a natural public speaking guru. I've had to earn some of my stripes as a speaker. I'm going to talk about understanding fear, the role fear plays, some truths about fear, and one of my favourite books, one of the books that helped me, comes from Dr. Susan Jeffers, and that is Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the truths, because these truths may help you put fear into perspective. Talk about the anxiety reality check, where you might be before speaking, and I'm also going to talk about the prime model. The prime model will be about half the seminar, and the prime model will be some steps that you can take prior to your presentation to help you gain more confidence, more control. Ask questions as we go. If you've got a microphone, raise your hand and I'll open the microphone for you to ask the question, or raise your hand and just type a question. As well as asking questions as we go, I've got a couple of places throughout the webinar where I'll pause and allow you to think about questions as well. Let's get started. Understanding fear. This is a little acronym that most of you have probably seen before, and it's about false expectations appearing real. And what it means is much of what we fear is not really going to happen. And 80% of what we worry about does not occur, and we invest so much energy and time in worrying about those aspects. So this is just a nice little acronym that you can all remember. Next time you feel fear around anything, fear of heights, fear of going back to university to do a postgraduate as a mature age student, just recognise that much of what you fear is probably not going to happen, and false expectations appearing real is a wonderful way of putting fear into perspective. Susan Jeffers spoke about the 5 truths about fear. And each of these truths has some learning for us, has a lesson. The first truth is the fear will never go away as long as I continue to grow. So what that means is, as you continue to take on more senior roles in your career, change jobs, move from one job to another job, move from employment into retirement, move from employment with the government, like myself, into self-employment, the fear is not going to go away as long as you continue to grow. Yes, I could have stayed in my same job for 30 years for another 15 years, but there wouldn't have been any growth. So when you do things differently, my first trip overseas to Europe, I was 40, I think, when I went. And not that I was absolutely afraid, it's just that there was some fear associated with it, different languages, flights. But if you want to go on that holiday, if you want to get that PhD or that master's degree, there's going to be some fear. It's part of growth. So if you want to, as you improve your public speaking and you move from small groups to medium groups to bigger groups, as you continue to grow, the fear will always be there. That is truth number 1. Truth number 2, the only way to get rid of fear of doing something is to go out and to do it. If you're afraid to go back to university and do postgraduates as a mature age student, that fear is not going to disappear unless you go and try and do it. There's no magic pill that's going to all of a sudden allow you to go back to university and study effectively with no fear. So as you realise you've got a fear around public speaking, honestly, the only way to get rid of it is to go out and do more public speaking and do the training around public speaking. And you can read books. You can read books until the cows come home. You can attend webinars and seminars until the cows come home. But the fear doesn't go away until you start to get on your feet and experience the fear and start to do more of it. The only way to feel better about myself is to go out and to do it. So if you wanted to achieve something and you decide not to do it because of fear, and there's that little bit of self-doubt and that realization that you didn't do what you wanted to do, and you get down on yourself a little bit. The person that didn't have the courage to report what he identified as a potential safety issue, and the accident did occur, he's not going to be feeling that crash hot about it. So the only way to improve those feelings is to go out and to do it anyway. The fourth truth, and this is quite an important one, not only will I, that's you, not only will you experience fear whenever you're on unfamiliar ground, unfamiliar territory. So whenever you're speaking and you're feeling uncertain and speaking in a larger, a more difficult situation, so does everybody else feel the same fear. So those people you admire, those people that you have seen grow and become confident, the public speakers that you watch and think that you'd like to be that good, They've all got the same fear as you have. I have the same fear that people who fear public speaking have. But the difference between those that have succeeded and those that don't are some of us have decided we will not get rid of the fear and we'll stay within our comfort zone. And others have said, well, okay, yes, the fear is there, but I'm going to go out and do it anyway. I'm going to do it anyway. So those people that you admire have had the same fears. They didn't know that when they went back to university that they were going to be able to study. They didn't know that standing on their feet in front of a Toastmasters group was going to be still difficult, but the more that they performed it, the more Toastmasters meetings they went to, the easier it got. And the Toastmaster that was chairing the meeting and spoke beautifully and strongly and effectively, he had the same fear when he walked into that meeting. In fact, most people, 90% of people who go to a public speaking club go there because of fear. And then they realize that they can face the fear, and after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, they become confident Toastmasters. They become confident speakers. And the fifth fear, the fifth truth about fear. Pushing through fear is less frightening than living with the underlying fear that comes from a feeling of helplessness. So there's there's something you want to do, but you don't do it because of fear and you feel helpless. At the age of 40, I was asked to coach my son's cricket team. And I said, sorry, I'm too busy. I don't have time to do it. What I really meant was, I'm too afraid to coach my son's cricket team. I don't want to risk exposing myself in front of him and his friends, his schoolmates, and the possibility of me stuttering or mucking up. I didn't want to risk that. And of course, for the next 12 months, 2 years after that, I felt a lot of shame. I felt helpless. And of course now, 10 years later, I know I can and I could do that coaching, but it's too late. My son's not 10 anymore. So that opportunity has gone forever because of the fear. So pushing through fear is in fact less frightening than having to live with the underlying incapacitation, the underlying fear that comes from that helplessness when you feel trapped and you know you should have done something, but you were held back because of the fear. So they're the 5 truths of fear according to Dr. Susan Jeffers. Dr. Susan Jeffers, in her mid-40s, developed breast cancer, had to have a double mastectomy. Her husband left her and she was in the pits of despair. And she was angry and she was blaming everyone. And then one morning she woke up and said, no, I've had enough of this. I'm going to just go out there and do what I want to do. And she wrote this book and she turned her life around, and she's still around today. She's, I think, in her mid-70s, and the book's been the best-selling self-help book for 20 years. So there's some truths about fear. What lesson in each of those truths can you use in your situation, in your public speaking situation? So there's a little bit about fear and the role fear plays. If you want to overcome your fear of public speaking, you've got to go out and do it. Those people that speak confidently and effectively, they felt the same fear that you're feeling at the moment. Pause for a moment. Any questions? Put your hand up and type in a question, or put your hand up and I'll open up the microphone. Okay. The anxiety reality check. this is just one of those universal rules of public speaking, and if you've been to my workshops you will have seen this before. And I delivered a one-day workshop yesterday in Perth, and I had a group of librarians in the room, and they did their mini speeches, and a couple of them, I stopped them and said, on your anxiety scale, and I put this scale up, where would you rate yourself? 10 is really, really anxious, really nervous. Above 10 is a near-death experience. 1 is really, really calm. Any lower than 1, you'd probably be asleep or comatose. 5's in the middle. After your presentation you've just delivered to the rest of the audience, where would you rate yourself? And every person I asked put themselves around an 8 or a 9. One person said 7, so really quite high. They're experiencing high levels of anxiety as they speak in front of a group of 10 people. It's not 1,000, it's not 100, just 10 people. And I've put them on the spot and I've asked them a question to talk a little bit about themselves. They're at a public speaking workshop and they're really quite anxious. I then asked the audience, where would you rate that person? From what you just saw and what you observed, not taking into account where they've told you their anxiety level is, where would you rate them? And people always say 4, maybe 5, 3 or 4. And this is one of the universal laws of public speaking. And it's really quite simple. Whatever anxiety level, whatever your experience when you're on the platform, when you're speaking, when you're before a group of people, the audience only sees 50% of that. And if you turn that around, inversely, what that means is you're doing twice as good as you think you are. Yes, your heart's pounding, your voice is feeling a little bit squeaky, and maybe your palms are sweaty and your mind's doing all sorts of gymnastics as you're trying to make your message flow coherently. But the audience doesn't see all that. And if they can get 2 or 3 points that's going to help them, they'll think you're a great speaker. And that's one of the universal laws. So you're already doing twice as good as you think you are as a speaker. The beauty of this also is that if you are indeed calling yourself an 8, you're so nervous that you rate yourself an 8. If you bring yourself down 1 notch to a 7, then the audience is going to see you not as a 4 or 5 anymore, but as a 3 or 2, which is calm, confident, in the groove. So you don't have to bring yourself down to a calm level. You only need to bring yourself down to a anxiety level that's a little bit above medium, and that gives the audience a strong, eloquent and effective presentation. So one of the myths in public speaking is that you should be calm, that you should have no nerves before speaking. No, that doesn't exist, and nor do you want it to exist. If you were so calm 2 or 3 that you went to speak, you would be flat. You wouldn't be in your peak performance mode. You wouldn't be energized in the right way to engage your audience. So the good news is you're not meant to be calm. So in the speaking circles, we talk about the butterflies, the knots you feel in your stomach. And I know you'd love to eliminate them, but you don't eliminate the butterflies. You don't eliminate the knots. Instead, what you do is you harness the butterflies and you make them fly in formation. So you harness that nervous energy and let it put you in your peak performance mode. Let's use that same anxiety scale with the elite athlete. It can be swimming, it can be running, it can be high jump. You're about to compete in an Olympic final. So one event away from a gold medal should you win. You've worked for 4 years, maybe even longer, from, you know, a teenager working hard, training, 5 a.m. in the morning. Where is your anxiety level going to be at the beginning of that race? It's a gold medal race. The whole world is looking at you. Glory is just 100 meters of track and field, or 100 meters of water away. Where would your anxiety level be? The biggest event in your life. Now, if you say 8, 9 or 10, then that athlete is allowing their anxiety to debilitate them, to restrict them from their peak performance. And with that level of anxiety, you're likely to false start. You're likely to jump the gun before the race has started and be disqualified. You're just so anxious, so edgy, so jumpity that you false start. The same token, if you were so calm that you're a 1 or a 2 before the Olympic race, you'd probably miss the start. The gun would go off and everyone else would be out of the blocks before you, and you would have to make up ground because of that lethargic, that low level of anxiety, or that low level of adrenaline that's needed to put you in peak performance mode. So where do you want to be? The athletes will tell you around 5 or 6. So that healthy level of anxiety, you're a little bit on edge, but it's not debilitating, it's not incapacitating. So as a speaker, you want the same level of anxiety. You don't want to eliminate it, but you want to have nice, strong energy so that the audience can see that you're genuine, you're authentic, you're energized, and you're emotional, and you're there purely for them. If you've ever been to a presentation where the person's just been really ho-hum, they'd rather not be there, they seem calm as a cucumber, and they just don't connect with the audience. And then there is the person around the 9 or 10 who's just is melting down, they forget what they're saying. 5 or 6 is where you need to be, not 2, 3 or 4. Bearing in mind, if you're 5 or 6, the audience is seeing you as a 1 or 2, which is absolutely brilliant. Really in the zone. And those athletes that win the gold medals, they look like they're in the zone. But really they had anxiety, they had the nervous tension before their event. So there's the role of anxiety. You're not meant to get rid of it. Use it. Reduce it a little bit. The audience only sees half of what you're feeling. That's not saying what you're feeling is not happening or is not true. Acknowledge it, but recognize you're doing twice as good as you think you are. Type in any questions if you've got. Put your hand up around the anxiety level. And while you're typing in your questions, or you have any questions, we'll move on to the main section of the webinar. So what I've told you now is how to understand the role of anxiety, and that if you get nervous or you have fear, then yes, that's quite normal. But I haven't helped you to reduce that fear. I haven't given you any tools to become more confident. And that's what the PRIME model is about. The PRIME model is about helping you become more confident, some tools and some things that you can do that will allow you to be more confident. Because just understanding the role of anxiety, doing your anxiety reality check, understanding that yes, everyone feels fear. You might say, well, Peter, that's great, but I'm still petrified when I stand up to speak. So I want you to use the PRIME model from now on. Prime yourself to speak. And I've shown it as a pyramid, and preparation is the base, is the building block of becoming more confident. Relaxation is going to be the thing that brings you down that one notch. Immersion, doing more of it, is going to help you gradually expand your comfort zone and reduce the tension. You're going to monitor and you're going to measure. You're going to get that feedback that you need. when the athlete's training, he's got his coach timing, telling him what to do, watching his technique, giving him feedback. He's watching video of his swimming style. He's watching video of other people that have got world records or that are faster than them. And the coach is giving them feedback. And expand your comfort zone. So crank it up one level at a time. I'm going to go through these one at a time. And there's a couple of lovely sayings I have around preparation. And one's called the 6 P's of preparation. Prior preparation prevents pathetically poor performance. And a famous author, Robert Schuller, said, spectacular performance is always preceded by spectacular preparation. And most of you know that Sir Winston Churchill is one of my champions, one of the people I admire. And his attention to preparation, the model that he used was he will practice 60 minutes for every 1 minute that he spoke. So this 50-minute webinar in Winston Churchill's model would take 50 hours of preparation. Now I can assure you I haven't done 50 hours of preparation, but that was Winston Churchill's model. And some of his language and his pausing and his ability to move audiences were brilliant. So preparation is what helped him. What do I mean by preparation? 3 levels: know your audience, know your venue, know your topic. Don't do an inordinate amount of time writing a perfect script and learning off by heart your script. That's not how you prepare. And if you've been on my workshop, how to structure a simple presentation, you'll understand that you don't need to learn your presentation off by heart, because much of what you're doing is telling stories. Rather, I'd prefer you devote your preparation into knowing your audience, Google them, understand them, know their values, know their mission, who spoke to them first, what level are they going to come dressed at, dress appropriately. If you wear a suit and tie and you come dressed absolutely immaculately and everyone's in their casuals, you're going to look a little bit like a punce, for want of another word. You're going to look like you're not at the same level as the people you're going to educate to. When you're speaking to accountants and lawyers, you will wear a suit and tie, and you'll know what to wear because of your preparation, knowing your audience. At the same token, if you turned up to a seminar on project planning or a fairly formal seminar in your shorts and thongs, in all probability the audience is going to say, what is going on here? So know your audience. Those of you who've been to my seminars know that I like to shake everybody's hands just to make that connection, so that you're not quite a friend, but we've made a connection. It's easier to speak to friends than it is to strangers. It's easier to speak to strangers than it is to your peers. So the hardest gig is speaking to your peers, people that you work with, people in your profession, because they may know more than you and they may judge you. So know your audience. Shake people's hands. Take the time to connect with them. Are there any cultural awarenesses you need? I speak to quite a few Aboriginal people in Western Australia, and in my workshops the icebreaker is, tell me a little bit about yourself. The Aboriginals in West Australia don't like to speak about themselves, but they love to speak about where they're from, their family and their mob. So that icebreaker, I simply turn around, tell me a little bit about where you're from, your family and your mob. And they just love to talk about that because family is so important to them. If I haven't done my research and I don't understand my audience accordingly, then I could muck up. So knowing your audience just enables you to prepare. Know your venue. One thing I hear often is that people, when they go out to present, they go to seminars, they go to workshops, they go to conferences and they're a speaker, sometimes the first time that they walk on that platform is as they're giving their presentation. And in public speaking, this really is a no-no. What you need to do is know your venue well. Walk on the platform before you speak. Earlier that morning, I go the day before if I have a chance, but if you're flying interstate or the room's only used for that particular seminar, get there early. Be the first to arrive. Walk along the platform. Check, are there any problems? Are there any columns or pillars holding up the roof that part of the audience will be hidden behind if you move to the far right of the stage? Are there any dark spots? If you stand at one particular spot, you will be hard to see from the audience's perspective. How do you know all these things? You've got to walk the stage first. You've got to go to the venue. Sit in various points within the auditorium. Sit in various seats in the seminar room so that you get the bird's eye view from the audience's perspective. You get to look at what you're going to look like and to imagine and to visualize what you're going to look like on the platform. And you'll identify that there are dark spots or that there's something that's going to interfere. Are you going to use PowerPoint? Where's the screen? Where's the lectern? How are you going to get away from the lectern and stand in the middle of the room and engage the audience? That's where the adult learning takes place, in the middle of the room, not to the left side hiding behind a lectern. How are you going to know all this without knowing your venue? Know your topic. Know your topic really well. You don't have to be the guru or the expert, but know your topic to the level that you understand what you're talking about. And if you're questioned, you can answer with confidence. Know your topic so that you can plug and play. And what that means is that no matter what happens, you can still deliver your presentation. It means that wherever you go in the world, wherever you go in Australia, under whatever circumstances, we can plug you into the wall and you can deliver your presentation, your core message. It might be for 15 minutes, it might be for 1 hour, it might be for 2 hours. Doesn't matter what length of time, you've got the flexibility and the confidence to present for any length of time. If you do use PowerPoint, what happens if the power goes off? It doesn't matter. You're so well prepared that you can still deliver your material without PowerPoint. What if you've got a little DVD that you want to show and the laptop provided doesn't have the right reader and your DVD is not compatible with that software, so you can't show your DVD? Doesn't matter, because you can plug and play. What if the fire alarm goes off and all of a sudden you're assembled outside in the car park? Can you deliver your seminar? You might only have 15 minutes to go. Can you deliver the closing remarks and the call to action in your seminar out in the car park? Should the audience be willing to listen to? You should be able to. It's called plug and play. The speaker before you speaks 20 minutes into your time and you've got to cut your talk in half. That shouldn't matter. You can reduce your talk in half because you can plug and play. The speaker before you fails to turn up and the conference organizer says, Peter, I need you to stretch for 15 minutes. Can you do that? Yes, you should be able to stretch. You should be able to extend your presentation. So regardless of what time constraints, someone speaking into your time, or all of a sudden the conference organizer wanting you to speak for longer, that shouldn't matter. It's called plug and play. So no matter what circumstances occur, you can plug and play. With those levels of preparation, your audience, your venue, your topic, What you've done is you've eliminated much of the what-ifs. What if the power goes out? It doesn't matter. There's enough natural sunlight coming through the windows? It doesn't matter. I can present. What if I'm not dressed appropriately and the audience thinks that I look too snobby or too casual? It won't happen because you've done your preparation and you've dressed appropriately. What happens if the lectern is on the right side rather than the left side? It doesn't matter. You can speak from both sides and you're going to leave the lectern and come to the middle of the room. You've eliminated all the what-ifs. And a lot of these what-ifs, what if my message doesn't gel with the audience? It won't happen. You've done your preparation. You've tested your message on the audience. You know where the audience is hurting. You know what they want. You've really checked out your brief and the scope of your presentation. The advertising material, the abstract that people have read accurately reflects what you're going to say. So if someone comes along and thinks you're going to speak on something else and you don't, it's not because of something you've done. It's because they've misunderstood. So you don't have to worry about these things. You've done the 3 levels of preparation. All the what-ifs have been taken care of. You can plug and play any circumstances. You're ready to go. That's what I mean by preparation. Don't have a word-perfect script. Don't aim for perfection. Instead, aim for excellence. Learn to relax. So this is the second letter in the prime model, relaxation. I'm not going to spend much time on this. Find your own way to relaxing, your own quick relaxers. Is it deep breathing? Is it visualization? Is it meditation? Is it yoga? Shoulder shrugs. You know how I showed you the anxiety scale before. When you're a 7 or 8 and the speaker before you is speaking into your time and your anxiety is rising, what can you do to quickly bring yourself down 1 notch from an 8 to a 7? Bearing in mind, when you come down 1 notch, recognize the audience sees that as twice as good as you think. So you come down from an 8 to a 7, that's not eliminating your nerves, not eliminating your anxiety. The audience is going to see you as a 3 or a 4, which is confident, effective, in the groove as a speaker. Relaxation was what enabled me to move from not being able to speak to being able to speak, just by being able to control those nerves that welled up in me before speaking. Find your own way to relax. Immersion. Just do it. Jump in the deep end. Sink or swim training. If you speak once in a blue moon, if you stand on your feet before a group of people once every 1 month, once every 2 months, it's going to be very hard for you to become more confident, more effective, and put some of that fear away, to use your relaxation technique to know that you can bring your anxiety level down. Anthony Robbins said, repetition is the mother of, and I can't see that, repetition is the mother of skill. If you want to improve your ability to speak, if you want to become more skillful, you need to do more of it. So my challenge to you is, how can you make public speaking, how can you get on your feet once or twice or more per week? So you have to create these opportunities. Volunteer to chair meetings at work. Volunteer to be president of your football club, your soccer club, your netball club. Volunteer to go on the student association at university, where you know you're going to have to speak at meetings every week. Find ways of speaking more. Do some community presentations. Apex, Lions, Rotary, Probus, all these clubs love to have guest speakers. Send out emails to the meeting organisers and say, look, I speak on disability issues. I'm a speech pathologist and I can give you a quick synopsis on the common issues that we're going to face our children in their communication skills, I'd be happy to speak for 10 minutes. Some of these Lions clubs want 10-minute keynote speakers, some want half an hour. They're not going to pay you, but all of a sudden you're on your feet more often. Join a public speaking club, Toastmasters, Rostrum, the Penguin Club, an all-female public speaking club. There's 3 public speaking clubs I know of. There's bound to be more. How are you going to make standing on your feet a regular occurrence rather than once in a blue moon? That is the important thing. The M in the prime model, so preparation, relaxation, immersion, monitor and measure. You need to know how you're going. Get feedback. Feedback is the food of champions. That feedback needs to be specific, it needs to be immediate, it needs to be honest. Please don't go to someone that you're asking for feedback and say, how did I go? Because their response will be, good, yeah, that was good. What do you do with that in terms of becoming more confident, more effective, more skillful as a speaker? What do you do with that feedback? Nothing. You were good. So you need to let them know. How did I go in terms of my eye contact? Can you monitor my eye contact? I notice that I sometimes look up to the ceiling, to the floor when I'm thinking. Today I want to keep eye contact 100% of the time with my audience. Can you let me know how I go? Give them permission to be honest and get it immediately after your seminar. How can you get feedback? How can you get feedback? 3 ways. Have a friend in the audience, and I was just talking a little bit about that. Someone, a colleague, someone you've connected with. As you're building rapport, as you're learning your audience, part of your preparation, the first person who arrives and you've shaken their hand and you've had an extra 10 seconds to chat to them, ask them a favour. I'm notorious for my ums and ahs. Can you count my ums and ahs in my first 15 minutes? My aim is to eliminate ums and ahs. And at the end of the seminar, let me know. Let me know. So don't be afraid to have someone in the audience, a friend or a colleague, who can give you specific feedback straight after, honestly. Give them permission to be honest. Gestures, body language, facial expressions, you can get someone in the audience to give you feedback with that as well, but you can also have a look in the mirror. Just practice 5 minutes, and if you've got repetitive gestures that are not congruent with your message or that are distracting, you can alter your gestures, or you can move to a more resting position with your hands. How do you know that you're doing gymnastics with your fingers? How do you know you're doing the pencil sharpener with your wedding ring, turning it around, round and round and round, so much so that your finger's going to fall off? How do you know that if you're not getting feedback? Have a look in the mirror. Have someone in the audience give you feedback. Video record yourself. And of course the video recorder is the ultimate feedback. It does not lie. It shows you what you're doing and you can hear what you're doing. You can hear your filler words, you can hear your inappropriate language, you can see your gestures, you can see your eye contact. Video record yourself. Fantastic way of getting feedback. The last one, the E in the prime model, so preparation, relaxation, immerse yourself, monitor and measure. Now expand your comfort zone. If you want to speak at a national conference and you don't even speak at team meetings at the moment, it would be a little bit risky to go from today to next week speaking at a national conference. I'd encourage you to take smaller risks, different steps, expanding your comfort zone step by step. And then do that for a while, and then all of a sudden that risk becomes your new comfort zone. So if you don't speak much at all, find a way of speaking to 5 people. So maybe make a commitment at your small team meeting every week to get on your feet and say something. Maybe you're going to do a little case study. Maybe you've suggested that you would like to present on a topic each week. Or as I said, maybe you're chairing the meeting. So after 4 or 5 weeks or 4 or 5 months of speaking in front of 5 people, all of a sudden that's your new comfort zone. You've got your anxiety level down to 5 or 6. Then join a Toastmasters club, which will have 15 to 20 people. Go for that for 6 months until that becomes really comfortable. Then take the next level of discomfort and make that your new level of comfort. State conference, then national conference. All of a sudden, you have a new zone of comfort. So expand your comfort zone step by step. That's my prime model. That's my prime model. Any questions at this stage? Put your hand up and I'll open up your microphone if you've got a mic. If you don't have a mic, put your hand up and just type a question. I'm just going to pause for a minute. I'm going to take a drink of water. And I'll get you to give me some questions. I guess one question that I'd ask you is, what are you going to do differently the next time you speak? What are you going to do differently in terms of your preparation? What are you going to do to prime yourself to speak? Because if you don't do something differently, you're going to keep getting the same result. So you need to push the envelope. You need to expand your comfort zone. You need to speak more often. If public speaking is important to you, if presentation skills are important to you, and if you want to have that ability to influence and persuade your audience and get your message across. So I'll ask you now, what one thing might you do differently as a result of what you've seen in the webinar so far? What do you think you can do tomorrow, next week, the week after? No comments? Good afternoon in Melbourne. Your question,
it's
Garakai. Hi, Garakai.
Actually, I would like to respond to your question on what I would do, and personally, I would embrace anxiety and use it to my advantage. All along, I wasn't sure if, it was allowed to be afraid to talk in public, and I think I'm going to be big on getting feedback, immediate feedback from my client group or even my colleagues. We do a lot of information sessions, providing information to parents, and I guess from now on I would like to have sort of like a survey at the end of each and every information session I do, where I ask for feedback.
Yep. And thank you for that. And brilliant, brilliant. So you're starting to recognise that the anxiety is there, but you're saying, okay, I now understand it's a normal part of everyday life if I want to grow, and speaking is part of my growth. So I'm going to acknowledge that anxiety. I'm not going to try and fight it. If I can bring it down a notch, that'll help, and I'm going to get some feedback. And please make it specific feedback. And if you're doing information seminars, like it sounds like you are, it looks like your immersion opportunities are already there. You can probably get on your feet weekly. So get that feedback. And one of the feedbacks might be, I'm quite nervous when I speak. Can you let me know the level of nerves you think I'm displaying? How anxious, how high would you rate my nervousness? And I suspect that the feedback you're going to get is that you're not looking as nervous as you think you are. Then you might work on some other skills. Did you get my message? What one thing are you going to take away from my message? Can you let me know at the end of the day, at the end of me speaking, what one thing do you think I said? And then you'll know whether your message is refined, succinct, and clear. So brilliant. Thank you very much for that question, Garakai. And I said afternoon because that's Melbourne time. So we've got Sydney, Melbourne, and Perth at the moment. Any other questions from the other participants? Any other suggestions what you might do differently tomorrow? keep thinking about it. Keep thinking about it. As we wrap up, the webinar that I presented today is really about understanding the role of fear, and that fear is not meant to go away as long as you continue to speak. And it's the fear that puts you in that fight or flight mode, that peak performance mode that enables you to respond to danger. And you need to have that fear there to be a presenter in their peak performance. But what you don't want is that debilitating fear, that 8 or 9 out of 10 on your anxiety scale that renders you, and in the fight or flight stage, in the fight or flight scenario, there is a third one, and it's called freeze. So an animal's being hunted, they fight back or they take off, or the rabbit in the headlight freezes and ends up being run over. So we don't want you to go the freeze mode of that, you know, that survival mode where you fight or you run, fight or flight. So bring your anxiety level just down a notch. And even with that anxiety level running around 6, 7, even 8, recognize that you're doing twice as good as you think. From the audience's perspective, that's not dismissing, that's not me brushing off your nervousness and saying, don't worry about your anxiety. Recognize you've got that anxiety, learn to deal with it, don't let it get too high. Use it to energize yourself and to put you in your peak performance mode, but recognize that the audience is seeing you twice as good, 200% better than you feel, than you give yourself credit for. And the last part, the takeaway is you understand fear, you know anxiety, you know what's happening, but thanks, Peter, that doesn't help me. Use the prime model, preparation, relaxation, immerse yourself, get the feedback, and then gradually expand your comfort zone. So that's what we spoke about. I'm hoping that information was useful for you. I've got some new webinars coming up on Friday the 18th of March, 1 p.m. WA time, so that would be 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, how to write a killer speech. And this webinar is not free unless you're one of my mentoring clients. This webinar has a small fee. The next one is on 21st of March. This is a free webinar. This is tips to help you think and speak off the cuff. You know, those impromptu questions, or when you're giving that seminar, giving that information day, Garakai, and someone asks you a question that you're not expecting. How do you think and speak off the cuff? Both those webinars you can find more information, and you can register for at my website. I'm going to try something clever here. At my website down the bottom there, and I put my updated webinars there. So even if you don't attend a webinar and you want to keep in touch with when the next webinars are, then go to my website, or feel free to send me an email. Feel free to send me an email, and I will keep you updated. When you become one of my mentoring clients, all the webinars are free. I'm going to be in Melbourne. In fact, let me show you that. I'm going to be in Melbourne on the 31st of March and 5th of April. I also run a coffee cup mentoring session, which goes for 1 hour. I'll just choose a quiet place in Melbourne. I'll choose a time, and I'll speak on a topic with 4 or 5 people, you know, face to face. Sydney, 23rd, 24th of March. This is also, these coffee cup mentoring sessions are also part of my mentoring program. So if you like webinars, and I'll structure webinars on areas that you're interested in, so don't let me just drive the content. You can send me an email and say, Peter, I'd love to have a webinar on how do you respond to questions from the platform? How do you respond to questions from seminars? And I can do a webinar on that for you. So please do contact me. workshops. 2 dates for Perth, 2 dates for Sydney, 2 dates for Melbourne,